Peace, everyone. I'm Sierra, and welcome back to the Tarot Alchemy podcast. And for today's episode, I'm not going to bore you with the details or anything else. I am so honored and thankful to be able to share space with someone whose deck I've been working with literally for years. I have two versions of it, the original and the holographic version of the Mahogany Tarot. None other. If you've seen any of my other content, I always teach from this deck. I'm always using this deck. I just love it so much. So I have the creator here with me, Miss Kasheera Hickson, to explore her creative process and to be able to give us a little bit of insight on how she uses tarot in her own practices. So welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm so honored to
I
be
am
a
so excited.
podcast.
Oh yes, everything happened before and I completely lost all of my other platforms and now I'm building from this one. And so
Okay.
the teaching methods and everything that I'm using, I'm always referring to your deck. Every single person that people come to me about when it comes to finding their own tarot deck that want people on it who look like us, I'm always referring this deck first.
Wow. Thank you so much. Honestly, I saw some of your videos on TikTok and I was like, yes, let me repost all of these because the content was beautiful and amazing. Very
Ab-
helpful for tarot readers, the tarot
Absolutely.
community. Yeah.
I love it so much. So, before we get started, let me know a little bit about your spiritual background, your cultural background, and how you got into tarot.
I grew up in a Christian household. Um, but as I got older, I was finally able to kind of like venture out and explore other spiritual practices. So now I consider myself to be more spiritual than religious. And I like being able to just like find inspiration everywhere and take what feels meaningful to me and then add that into my life and in my understanding of the world. So I feel like it's very open, it's very welcoming. It's not very like strict to one way of being. It evolves as I evolve and grow and mature.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so great about tarot is it's something that's like a living body of work. It's a language. It's the archetypes that transcend any type of spiritual or cultural backgrounds because it's what makes us all have the same type, see ourselves in the same sort of light without it being so bogged down in the dogma that we aren't able to relate to it in whatever way, the containers that it's been able to hold for so many years.
Mm,
And the reason why I love your deck so much is because from on the surface, it just looks like the traditional Rider-Waite with Black
right.
people on it, with melanated people on it. But I think
Mm,
that's the beauty in it also. When we get too abstract with the imagery, sometimes we lose the heart of tarot and the symbolism that's inside of it that makes the meanings of the cards what they are. And
mm,
so, whenever we're looking to learn specifically from that Rider-Waite Smith version of tarot, it's easier to be able to translate those meanings in ways that resonate for us, regardless of what our spiritual background is. And you'll notice a lot of people often use tarot when they're deconstructing from, I guess, like Abrahamic religion. Like you also have a Christian background, as I do also.
yeah.
And when we're in those spaces, sometimes when we meet this practice and we don't necessarily see ourselves reflected in it, we don't understand how it also applies to us. When
Mm,
a lot of this imagery is encapsulated from the history of Kemet, from Africa, and
right.
everything that they pulled from our architects,
Yeah.
from our archetypes, and painted it differently, even though a Black woman illustrated the original of it. Sometimes we get lost in the translation, and I love how you really put it back in our face so much with your
Yeah.
deck. When it comes to your actual tarot approach, how do you use it for yourself? Is it more like fortune telling, or is it more reflective, or how does that resonate for you?
So, I mean, I think my intro into tarot was more lighthearted, more like playful, like, oh, look at these cards and what can it reveal for what I'm going through. And so I still love to interact with tarot in that way. If I feel inspired, or if I'm like, I should do a reading on this, that's when I usually love to like ask about a new connection, ask whether this connection is going to be nourishing to me long term. I usually like to do tarot readings with very specific questions in mind. I feel like the more specific the question, the better. I have like done some tarot readings for other people, but I don't know if that's for me because like I feel like, well, that's the thing. So when I first started learning tarot for real, like maybe I can do this for other people. That's when I noticed that gap in like visually the representation. So that was kind of my intro into learning it officially. You know what I mean? Like being able to actually do readings. Before I was just kind of playing around with it. So, but when I was learning, all I could see were just like those white archetypes. And I was just like, I mean, these cards are beautiful, but it'd be nice if I'd be able to see people that maybe reminds me of like my dad or my mom or, people in my family, people that look like me. So that's when I kind of got that first initial inspiration to create that first card. But yeah, I usually, even still, I still like to just do tarot readings very casually. Like when the inspiration strikes and I'm like, I need to do a reading on this, that's when I will do a reading.
That's something I've never heard before, but I think that's also the beauty of reading
Mm,
tarot is that it doesn't always have to be so deep.
right.
Sometimes when we get so immersed in our spirituality and what things mean and finding the greater
Yeah.
purpose in everything, that we take the fun out of it. And
Mm,
so, like the way that you approach it in a more casual way, it's like it doesn't always have to look a certain way when we do readings for ourselves. It can just be a playful type thing.
oh,
And
yes.
and
Because,
while we're in the midst of Leo season, that's the whole thing is learning how
oh,
to play
yeah.
more, learning how to add some color, literally, all puns intended, into life and not making it seem so mundane or so simplistic in the way that we have our tarot practices. It's highly individualistic. So I love
Oh,
that
yeah.
you bring that approach to it also.
Yeah. And one thing I'm very like self-aware, and I know that usually when I'm leaning to a reading, it's because I'm feeling like a very strong sense of discomfort with uncertainty. And so for me, a lot of times, like when I do a reading, like sometimes you just want the cards to reflect what you already know deep within, but you just want to see it mirrored in the cards, or you want to feel like, I don't know, you want to feel kind of guided through whatever it is. Because I feel like honestly, I feel like that drives a lot of things is that discomfort with just not knowing. And we want to know, we want to be like, well, if I make this choice, and it's like I think the tarot can help with that. But deep down, you know that like a lot of times you can feel it on the inside, like whether or not if this is for you, if it's not for you, a lot of times we just, as humans, we just have a hard time sitting with ourselves. And tarot helps us to feel like to get that clarity. Like maybe we're feeling complete confused, maybe we're feeling scattered all over the place. And I find too when I like work with other readers, because sometimes I get readings from other people. Like sometimes you just want to feel like you're having your hand held through whatever the experience, the hard choice, or you just want somebody to just help you guide you through that. And I feel like it's just like this desire to be held, like help me. This is hard, and I want someone to help me through this. So.
That makes perfect sense. And you see that in tarot throughout each of the cards, even in the ones that we think mean the worst, like the
Mm,
devil or the death card or the
yeah.
tower. There's
Mm,
still an antidote inside of
mm,
those
that's
cards.
true.
So
That's
even when it
true.
feels like everything is crumbling down to the bare
Oh my God.
bones,
Yes.
there's still this sense in its meaning that translates to, okay, but this isn't the end, and this is how you
Right.
can maneuver out of it.
And it's probably a necessary end. If it is the end of something, it's probably for your own good. But a lot of times, we want the ideal, right? We want to be like, well, it could have been like that, but like it didn't have to happen like that. But it's like, girl, it had to happen like that for you to grow in the way that you need to grow. So yeah, I find it to be, I do find that a lot of people that aren't familiar with tarot, they get kind of like, they think you're like talking to evil spirits and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's not what we're doing. But, they're going to make up this whole thing in their mind about what they think it means. And that can be hard to like, especially family. Like, what are you selling it? What are your cards for? I'm like, I'm not about to explain it to y'all. If it's not y'all thing, then just keep it moving.
I completely agree. And on the opposite side of that spectrum, it's like if you aren't willing to actually see the fullness in what tarot can offer, then even when we get those happy cards, those happier
Mm,
cards, like the sun and everything else, right?
yeah.
It's like we get stuck on that wavelength of just being in complete oblivion or bliss, even that
Mm,
we don't necessarily take the time to or even know to begin with that there's it's layers to it. So
mm,
even while sometimes I find that some people like to be coddled with tarot,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's the most simple and PC way that I can put it is that
Mm,
we look for those happy cards, but when we
mm,
do those readings, it's nothing more than you in full effect. So
right.
you can, of
Right.
course, you can use different spirits. I mean, that's all dependent upon your individual
Right.
practices, but
Hmm.
ultimately it's an extension of yourself. And
Right.
so if we are also avoidant in those deeper conversations that we need to have within ourselves, then it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what type of cards you get in that spread. You find yourself trying to make it fit a narrative that is not
Right.
healing.
Yeah. And plus in life there's like the shadow. And you can't just like completely avoid the shadow forever. Like the shadow is there for a reason. But I think it's funny though, because like in my short period where I was actually doing readings for people, I find that like if you tell them what they want to hear, they're like very happy. But if you don't, they're like, well, I don't believe in this anyway. So and it's just like, really, you just threw the whole thing away because I didn't say what you were hoping. And so it's people are like very fickle like that. They want a certain answer. And honestly, even when I read for myself, if I'm not in a good mood, I just won't
Mhm.
even do the reading because like like sometimes I feel like if I'm too invested in a certain answer, I won't get the clarity that I'm hoping for. So, and that's good. I always wait till I'm in a clearer energy to do readings.
So important.
Mhm.
Do you use any specific spreads or any type of prompts? Like, have you found a source for that, or is that more of an intuitive process for you?
Yeah, I feel like I do the most basic of spreads. Like I'll just pull like three cards. A lot of times I find myself doing like not well, I guess there was this one lady. I just realized that this is probably from her. I can't remember her name though. But when I was learning tarot, she was showing how to do like a yes or no reading. And it
Mhm.
was always like three cards. And if the card in the middle is upright, it's a yes. Now I know there's probably a million ways you can get a yes or no
Mhm.
answer, but I think I've been sticking to that. So I always do three card readings. Even when I find myself asking about like say there's a couple, or maybe there's one person asking about their partner. I usually do three cards for both of them just to see where they're at mentally, but as individuals. Because like I'm like, well, it's not that he don't care about you, but he's very focused on his career right now or trying to
Mhm.
like get his money right. So I find that to be more I mean, it's more helpful, I think, for the person I'm reading for, because then they can see that it's not all about them. You know what I mean? Like this is what this person is struggling with right now. So yeah.
That's good. I also do not use specific spreads.
Okay.
I feel like it's good for people who are just beginning that need that sense of structure because
Yeah,
78 cards can be really
that's true.
intimidating. And then
Yeah.
learning each of the cards and then, trying to come up with those meanings off the dome or whatever else, right?
Right. Right. Right.
It is more intuitive also for myself, but having that structure where you limit it to just three cards instead of using every single card that flies out. Sometimes you get 10 and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be
Oh my
doing with
gosh.
10
Yeah.
cards. But
That's
yeah, having that structure around like a simple three card spread, even if it's like a past, present, or future, or however that resonates, right?
true.
It can bring a little bit more of structure and direction and clarity for someone who's just beginning reading tarot. So I love that you do that also in your practices.
Yeah.
Now, I am so excited to learn about your entire, as much as you're willing to share, your process of creating this deck. So, where did the idea come from? Please spill
Okay.
it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it was during the pandemic where they shut everything down that I took that as a period to actually like lean into my hobbies. And tarot was always just a hobby up until that point. So I was like, you know what? Let me actually learn how to do this. Like, let me learn more about tarot and actually how to do readings. So I paid for this course. I think it was like Biddy Tarot or one of those main
Hmm.
tarot companies. And I started doing the course, but I was like, wow, like every single card that they're teaching from is like there was no Black representation. But even still, like I was able to connect very much so with like the Empress energy. So I was like, right, I was gonna put her on like a jacket. And I was like, okay, so maybe you should make her look like you so that like like why not. So I've always been very creative and artistic, so I took it into Photoshop and I like did my first mock-up of like reimagining the Empress as like what a Black woman, and it came out so pretty. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is nice. So I was like, and I actually enjoyed the process of doing that. So I was like, well, maybe if I did all the cards. And it just happened that like I had all that time during the pandemic just to be at home. And I think I was at the end of my pregnancy with my second child. So yeah, I took that time to make all the cards, and the way that I came up with the name, I mean, I think mahogany just feels very like classic and timeless. So I figured Mahogany Tarot felt perfect. So, when you're starting any kind of brand, you're researching like, is anybody already using this? So it was free. So I was just like, okay, Mahogany Tarot. I think I like the ring of that. So that was the beginnings of the brand itself.
So you found yourself, you were learning the cards and you couldn't find any representation through those
Right.
cards that resonated heavily with you. So you created it yourself. It was
Yes.
really that simple.
Yes, that's the thing too. I think a lot of times when creative ideas come to us as individuals, I feel like that's like it's very important to jump on it when that inspiration strikes, because I noticed that sometimes inspiration can wane. Like if you wait 4 years and then you try to come back to it, it's like you're not having that same um energy as when you first got the idea. So I usually that's my main tip to creators is as soon as that inspiration strikes, while you're excited about it, that's when you should really just start making it. Like start the process of just because that's the thing. You can have an idea in your head forever. And it's if you didn't make it, then it's not anything yet. You know what I mean?
It just doesn't hit the same. It's
Right.
like if you, and then I'm also like, I always hone in on whatever's for me is meant for me. But I
Right.
always think if I sat on this thing, if I
Mhm.
see it on the timeline of somebody doing what I was supposed to be doing, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
my feelings hurt, you
But
know?
crazy. I made all 78 cards. And then I actually did find that there was another creator that did a Black version of the Rider-Waite-Smith, but this was after mine was already done. But I do think had I saw that first, I might have been like, oh, well, somebody already did it. You know what I mean? Right? Because that's sometimes how we think. I don't know that I would have like created it or finished creating it had I saw that someone else had did something similar. So I'm kind of grateful that I wasn't aware that that was already out there. Because once you see somebody already did something, you're like, well, what I need to do it for? But I actually encourage people to still do their own thing because you never know. Like everybody has their own thing that they add to. You see how many times they do a different version of like Snow White or something. Like clearly they're operating on a whole different like whatever. I don't care if it's already done. There's about to be five of them, all from a different perspective. So I mean, but I am happy that I wasn't discouraged. I didn't see that and it discouraged me. So I was able to actually finish it. And when I think learning all about like manufacturers and all of that was probably like the least fun part, but it's important to sit down and you got to know how much it's going to cost you, how much you're going to price it. And that I have a whole ebook on like how to create your own tarot deck and all of that stuff, like the printers and designing it. And you do need to also like gauge demand. Although I didn't really do that. I didn't have to do that because I feel like the Rider-Waite-Smith was already kind of something that was out there. So I didn't feel like I needed to, like, it's already something that people are familiar with. But I think if you're doing like, say you're doing Black Mermaids or you're doing something else that you feel like needs to be out there, you do have to gauge like, am I gonna be able to sell these? You know what I mean?
Marketing is a huge point to that for sure. I don't know like what tips can you give for marketing? I mean, I just stumbled across yours and I
Really?
ended up flying off on it.
That's
But for
crazy.
people who want to be a bit more intentional about that process, what would you recommend?
Honestly, that's the craziest part. Like when I actually got the first batch, I bought like 1,000 decks. I wasn't even I had told no one about it. I posted it on Etsy because I was like, well, let me at least get it up. But at the time, I was closing out my jewelry company because I've always been making stuff, but I was on like polymer clay jewelry at the time, and I had signed up for this huge event where I was going to be having to make like 300 or plus pieces. So I posted the deck on Etsy thinking like, okay, at least it's up, but I wasn't expecting no sales. Like, because I put my jewelry on Etsy and it never sold. So I just thought like, I'm going to put this on there and like, whatever, at least it's there. So, and because I didn't want to be overwhelmed anyway, like trying to plan for a big event and then having to deal with like packaging and actual orders. So I just posted it. Then it started to sell just like organically. I didn't do any kind of marketing. So I couldn't even tell you. The only thing I think that maybe contributed to that is that I created something that I had wanted to see and other people had also had that desire. Like like I can't even give you good marketing advice because the way that it started selling, like I don't feel like I did any marketing for it.
That's
Unless
okay.
people were already searching for black tarot deck or something and they just happened to find mine. So
I feel like that's okay too, because around the time that you started creating it was around the time that folks were in the house.
that's
So,
crazy.
and around that time, that's when spirituality really started to pop on TikTok also. So,
Right.
being in that space where it was divine timing that you created something that there was already a demand for. People just may not have necessarily been able to articulate that in any type of way. But I think it was just following your intuition and your spirit in that sense also, and then honoring that you had this creative idea, and then instead of just sitting on it, continuing to explore and expand from there. So I
Yeah.
feel like even if there isn't a direct marketing
Shit.
plan or anything, your spirit will always tell you. Your spirit always knows.
Right. And even honestly, while I was making the cards, I don't know how, but it felt like it just happened. I felt like I was in like a flow state. Like I was just making it like it was already made, but I was just like, I don't know. I can't explain it. But all I know is that it felt really like I was already meant to do it or I had already done it. I don't know. I don't know, but it felt definitely divinely inspired, like something I was meant to do. So maybe that's why it just took off the way that it did. But I honestly, that's one thing that has always been important to me is creating representation where it's lacking. So it just so happens that tarot was that vehicle that it is what allowed Mahogany Tarot to come through. But I do still have that passion for like everything. Like even when I'm watching like Disney movies with my kid, I'm like, well, okay, why aren't there more black Disney princesses and even children's books? Like so I think as a creator, that's always kind of at the core of like I want to see more black representation and everywhere, because black people are so like diverse and varied. I don't want to see just one thing, you know what I mean? I want to see us wherever we can be, you know what I mean? And that's why I encourage, even though I have a deck, I want other black creators to create more decks. Like most people get afraid of like, oh, you're creating competition, but I'm like, it's all needed. You know what I mean? Like the merrier. Like you can have more selections, more options. That's what I want when I go into a metaphysical shop. I'm like, okay, why is there only like, well, usually there's no black decks, but it's getting better. But it's still lacking, surprisingly, right? For 2026.
I completely agree. And from what I'm hearing about the way that you created, you're already a creative person. So you're already tapped into that type of energy. And I
Right.
hear you mention things like your children's books and TV shows and things like that. Would you
Right.
ever consider branching off into that arena to start creating there?
Yes, I love that. I love all of it. I love storytelling. Um, I definitely want to write a Disney movie. But I feel like sometimes like when I say that, there's a part of my mind that's like, girl, you reaching. But I'm like, okay, but it's necessary. Like we need more than just like Princess Tiana. and like the few characters that are already out there. I want to see like a true dedicated like Disney film, more, just more. Like I don't want to feel limited in what I'm showing my kids. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would love that. That would be so fun. And music is very important to me too. So I'm like, but you like I said, you do have to be grounded. I think when you're a creative person, you have to kind of like, okay, this is what you're selling right now, and this is what we're focused on. Because otherwise, oh my gosh, last thing you want is a bunch of projects that are like almost a product or almost something, but you haven't quite got anything that's, so you kind of do have to, you got to ground yourself because otherwise you're going to be like, I want to do this and I want to do that. So yeah, you kind of have to come back to like, okay, well, what's priority right now? But hopefully one day I'll be able to get into the world of Disney movies, or if not Disney films, maybe just a new princess story that maybe eventually gets turned into a Disney film. We'll see.
The sky's the limit. And
Yeah.
and you say, girl, you reaching, but I say reach. I say reach.
Yeah, girl, we all the limiting. That's the other thing about the mind. Like we be our own worst critic. The most doubtful part, the most doubtful voice in our lives is usually our own thoughts. So I do a lot of times I have to realize that like that part of you that's talking is, what I do, and because that's the only thing that I think keeps me grounded is the self-awareness, is when I realize that I'm trying to doubt myself before other people can doubt me. I'm like beating other people. I'm trying to like, let me say all the worst things that they might say. They may not even say that, but I'm trying to like prepare myself. And I think that can be very detrimental. So a lot of times I'm like, okay, nobody said that to you. Nobody's doubting you. These are all, everything's just in your own head. So just like quiet those noise, that noisy mind. And then you can actually create without feeling like you're not gonna find success. Like, you eventually you gotta do it scared. You gotta just go for it because those thoughts are always gonna be there. And you're like, okay, yeah, I hear y'all, but listen, this is what we doing.
Absolutely. Do it
Yeah,
scared is the biggest advice that I would also say is for anybody learning tarot or looking to create a tarot deck or doing readings or whatever the case may be. Sometimes you just got to jump in with both feet.
that's
You're
true.
not going to know everything. I think we're talking a lot about
Right.
children. So
Hmm.
when we ask them, hey, what do you want for Christmas? They're not saying, oh, what is my budget? Where are you going to get
Oh
it
yeah.
from? They're
Right.
saying, no, I want North Pole with the candy canes. I want a big giant. They don't see
That's
limitations
true.
because they don't know limitations until they're taught or imposed upon them.
Yeah.
And that's just a part of the human experience. We do have to consider those things, but when we're tapping, just as you as a creative, when you're tapping into that energy, sometimes you just got to let spirit do the heavy packing on everything else and just do what we're here to do as a creative and just plant the seed and let it do what it's going to do after that.
That's
That's a
so
huge thing.
Yeah, that's so true. And honestly, I've seen a difference in, like, I feel like Mahogany Tarot was created out of a place of like true excitement, and it like lit me up in a way like usually hobbies do. I feel like whenever I was trying to create other things, like trying to prove that I could do it, it just had a different energy and it wasn't as successful, right? Where you're just like, or you can sometimes see somebody doing something, you're like, I can do that. But a lot of times I've found that that's not really that kind of a choice made from that place doesn't have as much longevity as a
Mhm.
choice that comes from like something that actually lights you up. But we learned that through experience where you're like, okay, so I can make clay jewelry, but like, this is not enjoyable to me. So, I mean, but I've had so many things that I've created. Actually, like one of the biggest things that I did prior to getting into tarot was I had this natural hair YouTube channel where I was like documenting my journey into embracing my natural hair. And that was like what I was known for a long time. So, I mean, that was a genuine experience because I did not know what my natural texture was and all that. I was getting perms and all that. So, but it was hard transitioning from that to tarot because a lot of the women that followed me there were Black Christian women. So I couldn't necessarily be like, hey, look at my tarot deck because they're like, Girl, the devil. So, but like I said, I just followed my what felt like bliss to me and created something that I was honestly like it was something that I wanted to see in the world, but I was very surprised at like all the reviews and the comments where people had been looking for something like this. I was like, wow, that's beautiful. Just very beautiful. So I'm grateful that I could put something out in the world that people really wanted, you know? So that's
Absolutely. And as much as it helped us, like for me, from teaching it, from learning it, it also did something within you to honor that creative passion, that moment, that spark, and to just see it
right.
develop. I feel like that also resonated heavily with you and your own journey and how, what it means to actually create something. You
Right.
have children, you already know what that process is like, being connected to that womb energy and bringing a child to life. It's that
Mhm.
same space that we create our passions, our creative endeavors, or whatever the case may be, the things that we're really locked in with. I feel
Mhm.
like there's a churning and a cultivation that happens within us whenever we're pursuing our creative endeavors, whether it is the tarot deck that you created, or the hair content that you made, or the earrings, the jewelry. I just
Yeah.
feel like there's something to that also.
Mm. Yeah, I'm learning to honor those moments of inspiration and just go for it because honestly though, I feel like I can't imagine living my life in any other way. Like I want to love what I do and I want to do what I feel like I'm called to do. I don't want to just be out here surviving or you know what I mean. I mean, wait,
Absolutely.
actually, hold on now. You can still be surviving as an entrepreneur and a business owner. But I think it's a different kind of survival when you're surviving and you're also not really feeling connected with what you're doing. So but you could definitely have both because even learning the business side of like I remember when I did my first 1,000, I was trying to like price my product and be competitive like a mainstream deck. Like, but
Mhm.
those decks are usually published through publishing houses and they usually do such a large quantity that they're like so they can have that low cost. You know, they can sell their decks for $20. So the first year I was trying to say like I was like, well, I can't be too high. But then I realized, like, okay, but look at your profit margins. Like, you can't live off of this. So that's the craziest part is that a lot of times the stuff you have to learn business wise, if you didn't come from that kind of, if you have to learn everything yourself, some of those lessons are like, I mean, some of that you just have to learn through experience, but it can be a little bit challenging.
I can definitely understand that, especially when it comes to pricing for people who have to price readings, for instance,
Right.
and not making it so out of reach that people can't access it, but then also making it affordable is like a
Mm.
balancing act that you have to do.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to be too cheap because people are gonna, it's weird, like the psychology of people, they assume that if it's more, then it must be better, right? So if you price it too low, then it's gonna affect how they view the value of what you're offering when you can have more value than the higher, more expensive thing. So yeah, you kind of have to not, don't try to think about what they can afford. Just try to think about what your time and energy is worth and
Absolutely.
then go from there because that's the last thing you want to be doing is trying to gauge like, oh well, I don't know if people have this. Don't do that. Just price it according to what you need to thrive. Like not just to get by, but price it according to what you need to actually live in a way
Mhm.
that feels like not like survival mode, you know?
And I think it's important to do that early on because you end up losing a lot of your core audience when you underprice really
Mm,
soon, and then as you grow up and get bigger or more known, then the price goes up. Then it's like then you
yeah,
lose who helped you
that's
build
true.
it to
Right.
begin with. So it's like establishing that and getting out of our ego and what we think things
Mm,
should be because of the economy or whatever else. I feel
right.
like people will meet you where they're supposed to meet you at. Like
Mm,
we have to center ourselves in those creative processes and then allow our audience to meet us as it comes. Um,
right.
and then if there's a chance to do giveaways or if there's a chance to do things where we can pour
Hmm.
back out into our community or whatever the case may be, then offer those opportunities, but
Yeah,
making sure that we don't cut ourselves at the knees too soon.
exactly. Did you always start with readings, or was it kind of just like
For
learning about
me,
there? Yeah.
Um, when I started, I started doing my readings on TikTok because that's what I seen.
Yeah.
But for over time, I just fell out of love with doing readings and I fell more so in love with the teaching aspects of it.
Okay.
Because I feel like we're at this time where everybody is just bickering back and forth about what tarot is and what tarot
Mm,
isn't and who can practice and what this means
right,
and
right.
what it's so much noise that
Mm,
we're also still at that crucial time like back in 2017 or 2020 when everybody was having these huge spiritual awakenings when
mm,
people find themselves in the middle and people are bickering on this side and everybody's arguing on this side about what it is, everything sounds like white noise at that point.
right.
So over time, I love doing readings, but I just felt like that was a ceiling for me. I
Mm,
wanted to do more. And so like with creating this podcast and being able to have a platform where I highlight it's not the Sierra show by any means. It's more so of a platform where multiple melanated creators and creatives can come and we can start having real conversations about how tarot resonates from every different perspective because
right.
tarot as a practice is not a monolith.
That's
There's
true.
many different ways that people practice and they're still all valid because tarot is highly personal,
That's so
highly personal. And so I wanted to create this space to for people who want to engage in long form content and conversations that are a bit more grounding than what
right.
we see on the surface.
That's true. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. So earlier you mentioned that your first card that really hooked you to creating this deck was the Empress. Is
Right.
that the card that was the most fun or revealing to make to you, or like how did
Yeah.
that go for you?
Well, I guess it was the most fun because it was the first one. So it's
Mhm.
that initial idea. But I did have a lot of fun making all the cards because like, even adding all the little afros, and I was like, I didn't want to go too modern with the hairstyles because I was like, okay, how would they actually have worn their hair if they were alive during this time and actually kind of fitting the character? And I was like, well, they probably wouldn't have like braids or like goddess locks, or they wouldn't have probably had none of that. So I figured that I would try to keep it more all natural and still kind of have that classicness of the original tarot, right? Like, but it was fun. It was fun, just making each of them unique. And eventually, I think my first edition, there wasn't really a lot of variation in like the browns. And I was like, well, I didn't even realize that I literally made all the characters literally one brown. So then I was like, okay. And then once I actually changed the browns, like, and made it more variation, then when you get the printer, like the manufacturer, sometimes the way those different browns translate when it's printed are not what you hope for. So there's just so much
Really?
to, oh my gosh. Like, so I'm like, why is this looking like a Oompa Loompa? Like, so sometimes the browns may print too orange. So but it's a learning process. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed making the hair part and all the features and just honestly making them a little more like beautiful, handsome. Um yeah, because I feel like the way that they were originally drawn can kind of feel a little too like back in the day, like too ancient. There's actually one card that I think I made it into a female, but it was a male, but I thought it was a male because it looked very masculine. I think it was the Justice card. So the Justice card is only a woman because I literally thought I didn't know what I was looking at. Was it supposed to be a man or was it supposed to be a woman? But either way, like I think the little things that how it eventually came out must have been what it was meant to be. So
Absolutely. I love that. Is there a card that revealed a lot about yourself in this creative process?
card. Um, I can't say that there's like one card that revealed like anything specifically about me. I do, and like we were talking earlier, I do think that the cards in general mirror like what you kind of know within deep inside, but like a lot of times we need to see it visually in the cards. So I feel like all of the cards are act as more of a reflection. But I can't say that there's one that was just like felt like that specifically for me.
More so, the entirety of the creative process was
Right.
revealed just enough. That's totally understandable. We also talked a little bit about creating your own tarot deck. There's a lot of people who contact me and want to know about different graphic designers or
Oh,
software programs or whatever the case may be, but you actually have a ebook that's dedicated to that. Would you like to share a little more on that?
yeah. So I created an ebook. I made it into like a physical book as well, so that's available on Amazon. But I'm in the works of like redoing the physical copy because it was one of those things where it's digital and it's meant to be an ebook, but then I tried to make it into a physical, and I'm like, wait, this physical book is looking too like much like an ebook. So, but I do have an ebook. I also have a YouTube video where I literally just talk about the whole process. That video is really long. So, I can put that. I think I have those links on my website somewhere, but maybe I'll make it featured. That way when people come to the site, they can just see that on the first page. But yeah, I have a video, I have the ebook, and then I also offer one-on-one sessions. Like if you're in the process of making a tarot deck and you want to just ask me anything, you could do that too. Like we could sit for an hour and you could just ask me anything that you want to ask me. So because sometimes people like that sort of thing where it's just like whatever pops into your head that you're struggling with when it comes to the deck creation process. I talk about AI and all that. Now AI wasn't around when I was creating the first
Mhm.
edition, but now some people are wondering if they should go that route. And I do, from what I've noticed, though, I do feel like people want more human-made things. So, I mean, even if you don't know how to draw, like people will appreciate the human touch. So technically you could still go like don't feel like all is lost just because AI has hit the scenes. But I mean, having said that, there are people that will whip together some AI decks in the quickness and be selling those. So I mean, it's just the world we live in right now.
Without dipping too much into that pool, I agree 1,000% because if we are using a tool that is heavily focused on the spiritual aspects of self, when we are
Mhm.
using a soulless and a spiritless medium to create those cards, sometimes it doesn't translate the same. If it's
Mm,
too robotic, if it's too simplistic, if we're more so focused on just getting the cards out or making them look a certain way instead of in exploring that creative process, I feel like you can lose the heart in it. This is completely Sierra. This is not Kasheera. This is Sierra's thoughts on this. Okay. I
yeah.
just feel like you just lose
Yeah.
it. And when I think of God, when I think of spirit, I think of that creative process. And
Wow.
it translates in the decks.
Mm,
I'm like, don't, if you're gonna do that, then understand that's something that can come with it. But if you do, please, if you have the time to spend with creating these decks and getting
right.
into the nitty-gritty of the creative process itself, it shows in the decks.
Mm.
It
Well,
really does.
yeah, that's true. I know that there are some people that they don't have any background with drawing, and so a lot of
Hmm.
times they want it. There's already black AI decks already out there on
Hmm.
Etsy. So, and people buy those. So, I mean, I guess you could say that the world is a little divided right now. Some people will not support anything with AI that touched it, and some people will. When AI first came out, I did see it more as like a way for people who don't have the resources to pay for a graphic designer. But I mean, I said like I was able to make Mahogany Tarot because I already had a background in Photoshop and in digital design. But for the people that they have an idea and they want to get out there, I can't necessarily say that I'm completely against AI because I feel like if it's something you feel called to do, like in the resource makes it a little easier. So I guess that okay, I actually have one deck that's actually AI that I did a limited run. It was my Oracle deck. And I literally made that for me because this kind of goes into my I feel like I've been on this journey of healing childhood trauma for a long time. So I wanted a deck that was um like some of the cards are like the brokenhearted or the abandoned or like I can't explain it, but I also have the yes, the no. So I really made that deck for me, and then I only sold like 10 because I was like, well, maybe some, but this was just for me. So some people use AI to make stuff for themselves so that they can feel like they're getting more answers. But I like my Oracle deck, but it's not something I'm gonna sell in a mass way. Like I said, I don't know if people want AI stuff for me. Right now, my main decks are human made, but like I have dabbled into AI, so I can't say that I'm against it. I just if you feel called and that's the tool you want to use, but know that some people are going to be completely against it. Like I said, I've been able to do a little bit of both. So, I mean, I kind of can, do I feel like the tool that I made with AI helps me in my practice, but I wouldn't say that. I think trying to sell it in a mass way, then I might have to consider like, is this what people want? I don't know. But yeah, we could talk all day about AI because people think it's taken over, and I'm like, well, I think people are always going to crave that human touch. If anything, it makes anything that you do by hand even more impressive. Since anybody can just generate something, like whenever I see artistic videos now on Instagram, I'm like, wow, like you did that. That's not AI. So I mean, I think if anything, AI is helping people to appreciate the human stuff more, but I'm not against the AI stuff. We're going to have both. It looks like it's what the world is looking like now.
It looks like it's here to stay for sure. And I think full discretion is the thing to implore
Right.
in this
Oh
conversation,
yeah, for sure.
because for people who, for ethical reasons or whatever the case may be, it's important to be informed
Oh
on
yeah.
these things.
You
So
should.
hey, for someone, you mentioned using how you created your own oracle deck for healing purposes.
Mhm.
If someone wanted to use your tarot deck, for example, what resources would you provide, or any type of tips that you would give for somebody who would like to use tarot in that space?
Like for everyday readings
For
or
everyday readings, for reflective practices, or anything that deals with healing specifically,
oh, okay.
journal prompts, or anything that you would recommend?
Oh, well, I don't have any advice for because I think that the Oracle deck, I think I use my Oracle deck more for that because I feel like it reveals like what's going on underneath the surface. I'm not saying that tarot can't do that, but I do think a good oracle card can sometimes show you. Maybe it depends on the oracle deck what's going on underneath.
Mhm.
I think the tarot. I'm trying to think what I might have asked the tarot in regards to like something. Okay, yeah, like I feel like most of my readings are still going to come down to like how does this person truly feel about me, even if it's a family member, because I want to know like I think sometimes it can be detrimental to um keep continuously dealing with people that the way that they see you is a little distorted. Like eventually it's going to seep into how you see yourself. So that's what I would normally do tarot for that. Like if I had a bad experience with this person in the past and they're like, "Oh, I've changed." I'm like, "Okay, let's see what the cards say." And then I will use it in that way like well, it looks like that the way that they're perceiving me is still a little bit distorted and more toward like the negative. So then I'm just like, well, like I said, you got to have those boundaries. And, not everybody can have full access to you or your energy. But that's something I learned much later in life, like literally just within the past few years, is that my creative energy was suffering when I kept dealing with people that didn't value me. They didn't really see me. They didn't really want to understand me. So I really had to, all of that was so hard. Like sometimes the amount of guilt you feel when you're choosing yourself, really that guilt doesn't isn't signifying that there's something wrong with you. It's signifying that you've been programmed to put yourself last. And now you're trying to break out of that and it just doesn't, that guilt is making you not feel good, but you should still be prioritizing your peace and your wellness and like even just differentiating like what's nourishing and what's not. You know what I mean? Because not everything is really for you. Not everybody in your life wants you to actually be the highest version that you can be. So I
Hmm.
feel like as a creative, that's just so important. So that's how I use the tarot to try to get clarity on like, okay, who, but a lot of times you know that. And sometimes seeing it in the cards is even more painful. So I mean, like I said, any kind of spiritual, when you're using tarot for like healing childhood stuff, it's you obviously if you have access to a therapist, that would be great too, right? Because a lot of times everything you need to work through, it's not like fun. All the emotions are not like necessarily fun to sit with, but they're there and you
Yeah.
should acknowledge them instead of like repressing them. So sometimes you can see that that'll come up in the cards. It'll show that I think but like I said, I do find for me, I use my Oracle deck more to see what's underneath. That's exactly why I made them. Like, and believe it or not, like say if I got like the blessing card and the abandonment card, I'm like, so how is being abandoned and a blessing? You know what I mean? But then sometimes the life you would have had you stayed with that particular parent could have been completely different. So and that's hard. Like there's so much about life that's just like sometimes you see stuff you're like, man, that's not what I want to see. Get that out of here. But yeah, you eventually you have to sit with the truth of like what spirit is trying to tell you, what you're meant to actually face right now, and so that you can keep maturing and honor yourself more. That's what it feels like I'm learning. It's just learning how to like honor what actually feels good to me and what's good for me and being able to get clear on that. A lot of times especially if you get used to putting other people before you, then sometimes you'll have to keep learning certain lessons before you can actually see that. So
That's the beauty of cartomancy in general. And even if it's not tarot, or in addition to tarot, for some people
right,
to be able to
exactly,
use things like oracle cards or coming up with them on your own to use as a helpful aid and guide to be able to see deeper than maybe what tarot alone may not be able to reveal for
right,
somebody. And so that's the beauty of this practice is being able to make it fit for you. So
exactly,
I love that 1,000%. We
yeah.
are almost at time, but I wanted to check if there's any last minute thoughts that you have, any upcoming events, projects you have. I know you're working on a new tarot deck.
Oh, yeah, I have a third edition coming out, but that's more of like a special kind of gold edition. And then I'm gonna gauge with my community. Like, do y'all want the second edition back? Like, because some people want they don't want all the gold fanciness. They may just want the regular deck to eventually come back. So, um, but yeah, that right now, that's what's taking all of my attention is like getting the specs for the third edition right. They're gonna send me a sample and then I'm gonna be able to actually like see it and feel it and make sure it's like of the quality that I usually like for my products. I am really excited for that. I do love a deck with a little extra something, like a special edition. But
Yes.
I love having a regular deck too, because that I feel like, you ain't gotta worry about messing it up or, a lot of times with your special edition ones, you want to treat them like very gentle, but come on, if you do a lot of tarot readings, you're gonna be using it all the time. So I do think sometimes it's nice to have a regular one, a special one that you break out sometimes. But we'll see. I want the special edition to be able to hold up with a lot of use too. So yeah, but this is my first time doing a large print run of, with the specialty options like gold foil and gilded edges and stuff like that. So yeah, but that's exciting. I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to investing in that also. I cannot wait. Pretty much anything you come out with, I'm gonna get it.
Oh my
I'm gonna get
God, thank you.
it.
Oh,
Absolutely. Thank you, Kasheera, so much for taking this time out to invest in my offerings and then also being able to explain to us the way that you use tarot and then also being able to provide resources for people who want to make their own decks. So I
mm-hmm.
love that so much. Thank you for being here
Oh
today.
my gosh. Thank you for having me. And obviously, many blessings and positive wishes for everything you're creating. I watch you on TikTok. So I don't know if you still have your channel, but I would love to continue following everything that you're going to create. And I think it's so necessary. So thank you as well.
Absolutely. And last things before we go, I'm going to link all of Kasheera's links and mahoganytarot.com, her ebook, her YouTube channel, and all the other great things and offers that she has. Please make sure you guys are following her on her platforms and stay up to date on her offerings and everything that she has going on. And that wraps up today's episode. And we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Much love.